Welcome to the Divine Soul Ignited. Trust your intuition, activate your highest potential, and live out your soul's calling. My name is Christina Miglino, and I am your host. And I have a very wonderful man that I get to introduce you to today. Let me tell you a little bit about him before you meet him. So Daniel Giamario is the founder and emeritus and senior advisor of the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School and creator of the Shamanic Astrology Paradigm. And we're going to get into that. Also known as the Giamario approach. He joins together an academic background in comparative philosophy and religion with teaching meditation in 2 worldwide organizations and extensive world travel. Daniel learned astrology in the late 1960s and was part of Dane Rudyard's humanistic astrology movement in the 1970s. After a vision quest experience on Mount Shasta in 1981, which we'll also hear about, I hope, his astrological vision and spiritual path became more earth-centered, and a shamanically oriented astrology was born. For many years, his specialty has been connecting astrology to the night sky at secluded locations and sacred sites in an as above, so below direct experience. He's been a full-time astrological consultant since 1984. That was 1 year before I was born. Welcome, Daniel.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction, and it's a pleasure here today talking with you about these issues and more that you brought forth. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I will say that the biggest thing that attracts me to your work is this idea of as above, so below. And, I'm thinking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just discovering this. And here you are, you've created a school that's, older than I am, or you've created work that's older than I am, where you're actually talking about bringing the energies of the earth and the energies of the galaxy together. And I think the vessels that who we are. But would you speak a little bit to that? I would love to hear about the school and how you came to form it that way.
Well, when I got into astrology in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, it was primarily psychological and intellectual. It didn't have a experiential focus. And actually, the majority of astrologers, even though it was a much more progressive version of astrology than mainstream sun sign astrology, which is definitely not what we're doing, it still lacked a connection to the physical experience or the experience of the night sky. So when I had these vision quest experiences in 1980, 81. Particularly a very momentous one that I did with Joan Halifax back when she was the head of the Ojai Foundation, and I went up to Mount Shasta for that. That is when actually the whole thing shifted for me. Before that, my spiritual path had been more Eastern. I actually was a TM teacher for a lot of years. I was involved more in an approach that it's kind of like, let's go somewhere else. There's something wrong with the density of the planet we're on, and let's try to get out of here. Well, the experience I had was that astrology should be connected to the actual land and sky, and that actually astrology is much more useful to modern humans if we're looking at it as an involutionary journey, that is bringing spirit into matter. Not trying to get out of here, but actually to bring awareness and consciousness into what it is to be an authentic human being. So that emphasis came in, as well as the fact that I discovered that astrology worked better, and you got more modern, vital insights about how it can help and what it means. Is that if you actually are on the land and if you look at the sky and you can relate the chart to the actual constellations, that you can be in harmony with the seasons that one is actually in, and to actually tune in to what the land and the sky have to communicate. Just like in many other shamanic practices, it may have to do with communicating leaving connecting to animal essences, connecting to spirit, connecting to leaving your body, and having all these experiences that are other forms of intelligence. We could say connecting with spirit. Well, we're just simply saying that with astrology, it is possible to form that same kind of relationship with the planetary essences, with the essence of the seasons, and then you bring it up to date. It's like we're trying to look at this in a post-patriarchal sense. And one of the central insights of our school is that it's really only the last 4,000 or 5,000 years that there has been what I like to call the triple aberration. We're basically the predicament that we're in today is because of three things that came together for the only time in human history. Hierarchical patriarchy, patrilineal family descent, and fundamentalistic monotheism. If we bring those things together, then we get the devolution that we find ourselves in, when actually human DNA, for so many, many more thousands of years, was collaborative. It was gylanic in the great language of Rian Eisler. It was a collaborative cooperation between men and women, and there was very little warfare. People actually cooperated with each other, and that's much longer in our DNA. So, these are some of the ways in which we're trying to update the astrological view, because astrology, when I came into it in the late 60s, early 70s, it really was patriarchal. Everything was sun sign astrology. There was almost no reference to the sacred feminine or anything along those lines. So I was fortunate enough to be part of that early movement to change it, to broaden it, to make it equal, masculine and feminine. And then along came the Vision Quest experiences, and being able to create a way of training astrologers that also means that they are open to having direct relationship with the planets, but also with a knowledge of the night sky, so you can get your inspiration directly from there. That was a long digression from your question about as above, so below, but let me, can I add one more thing to that?
Please,
Which is that there are many people who try to prove astrology through science or through statistics. Using linear cause and effect methodologies. If a person really wants to try to do that and their mind works, where they really enjoy that, okay, fine, do that. But I don't think that's how astrology works. I think it actually works more on a correspondence basis, like a hologram, as we could say. So that the patterning of the sky and the patterning of the inner psyche are on one magical level the same. So the as above, so below, but also as within, so without.
Yes, I love it. So can you talk a little bit, and you feel this out for yourself, but can you talk a little bit about what happened for you on Mount Shasta, how the shamanic aspect came into being for you?
Yeah, actually, as after I went through the alone on the mountain time period, the fasting and being alone on the mountain, I was so, I became very vulnerable, it's like there were several days that I didn't sleep, and there was I guess an opening in me, and as I was lying on the ground, actually feeling rather weak, then all I can say is the mountain reached out and met me. I felt a communication from the land, and at the same time, I was looking up at the sky, and I remembered how much I loved the night sky when I was a little boy. And so, and a lot of that came back to me at that point, and I said, well, I really love astrology, but it's really missing something. In fact, in my spiritual path, it really been missing something. It wasn't grounded enough. It wasn't earth-centered enough. So putting those that together, the fact that the mountain seemed like it was a presence that was connecting with me, right? And then meanwhile, rekindling my love of the stars. And then it sort of came together. And then for the next month, the next year after that, I was still living in Los Angeles at that time, and I went out to Joshua Tree, a place called the Wonderland of Rocks, and it was there on a full moon in January that this wonderful, incredible rock formation, which I call Grandfather, actually spoke to me under the full moon, and it said, "You are to apprentice with me, and I need you to come be here with me 1 weekend a month for the next year." So I actually, which I did, and so I looked forward to that every month. And then I started taking people with me, and I would put them down on, we'd camp out in the wilderness, and I started experimenting with these new techniques that were coming through during that time period about how to look at the chart.
Wow. That's extraordinary. I love hearing that. And your connection to the mountain and your connection to the rocks. And it reminds me so much of that really when we start to really listen to our inner wisdom. And I know for me, when I go outside now, even if I'm just not having a great day, when I'm outside and I'm breathing the air and I'm looking at the trees in my yard, there's something else that I can tune into. That is extraordinary. It aligns me with something so much bigger. So thank you for that. I love that you got those downloads from the earth.
Well, I'm a lover of carbon-based life and DNA more than I am of silicon technology. Although here we are using that, but in that sense, and I'll bring this up too, is that shamanic astrology is kind of a Neo-Luddite approach. And so basically a Neo-Luddite is not against technology, but basically says that if you use technology, have an apprenticeship with nature first. And then I say that to astrologers, be an astrologer, but have a relationship with the sky and the seasons and the planets themselves directly. Then use all the computer work you want after that, but form that experiential connection first.
Yeah, and how much that informs supporting other people. It's very, you've gotten, or I don't know, you've probably heard people who are so intellectual, they're great at analyzing, but unless they're tapping into the actual moment on the planet and the earth and the energies, it is hard to give something to somebody.
Yeah, and also it's continually changing all the time. Which is why, like in the shamanic astrology system, we don't try to, quote, predict. Our approach is to try to assist a person in being in harmony with the cycles they're actually in, and to have a greater awareness of what the place on the wheel of life they're actually on. And then our view is the universe is actually supportive of a human being who is navigating with the cycle they're actually in, or being the person they actually intended to be. So I mean, if we try to be somebody that we're not, or the culture says we're supposed to be, then there's going to be a lot of resistance.
Absolutely. So I want to bring up this idea of activating your highest potential.
Yes.
And if there's something you can offer around what you do, like I don't know if it's a practice or even something that you suggest people look at to activate that. Because a lot of us who may be on here are looking like, what can I do? I know there's something I need to pay attention to within me.
Yeah.
How do I do it?
Well, first of all, let me just speak a little philosophically about it. That in the last 30 years, virtually anyone who has reached out to our school or to me for consultations, their number one question, I'd say 95% of the time, is regarding life purpose. Why am I here? What is the intent of this lifetime? And we do have make the assumption in our school that life does have a purpose, that there is an intention we can tune into. It's not a crapshoot. Now, if you use that as a starting point, and that's pretty much the same as Jungian psychology. I mean, they have the same view. The bottom line for life is not sex, it's not survival, it's not will, it's not power, but it's a quest for meaning and purpose. And so we are totally in agreement of that approach, rather Sagittarian, actually. But then we take certain parts of the chart, and it's like a set of instructions. So in order to tune in to life purpose, so there'll be parts of the chart that will say, well, what version of the feminine did you come in to be? You know, what is your authentic expression of the goddess? Or that's generally seen through the Venus position on a woman's chart. Or what version of the masculinity did you choose to investigate? On a male chart, then that would be the Mars symbol. Then you know what character you came into play, and it may not be comfortable for you, but it's still like the set of instructions. If you go there, it'll be better, all right? So then you take it a step further, and there will be a storyline on the chart, actually 1 out of 144 storylines, at least in this system, 12 mystery schools, and 12 majors in 12 mystery schools, so 144 storylines, which then become the storyline for current life purpose. And then we can use that imagery to assist a person in making their decisions. You know, like we can say that all life questions, at least generally, can be answered by applying the questions to that storyline. You know, so then you're in harmony with your original intent. Which, by the way, is not always the path of least resistance.
Right.
You know, sometimes the path of least resistance is just to do what you're comfortable with, you know. And then even if you're successful doing that, it ends up becoming boring, or, you know, there's got to be something more than this, you know. So that's why there can be other clues on the chart that would say, well, maybe you need to go that direction, you know, and now's a good time for that, you know. It's like I was saying to you before we started this interview, that you happen to be in this once every 12 years power cycle to your rising sign, the very part of the chart that is associated with your soul's intent.
Wow. How long do I have?
Oh, well, the cycles, the specific cycle that I'm referring to is 8 or 9 months long, and so basically it's still in play until October. You know, so you've got virtually all of 2018 was dominated by this cycle.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So just in case it might help somebody to illuminate a chart and watch you do it, is there something else that you get around soul calling that, I mean, obviously you're not going to take another hour to look at my chart, but if there's something that stands out, I mean, it's interesting to hear.
Well, first of all, in general, one of the things you can tell from a chart is one of 3 categories of life experience. There are 4 of the signs, 4 of the mystery schools, that are the ones that we call householder or culture bearer, and they're like the particular ways of life that hold the culture together from one generation to the next. The parents, the partners, the protectors, basically the basic roles that the traditions come from. That would be Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, and Aries. And then there's 4 of them that are more about self-exploration. Sometimes we would call it self-interest. Scorpio being one of those. Scorpio, Taurus, Leo are in that category. And then there's 4 of them that are dharmas, we could say, ways of life that are in service to spirit. They're following something other than anything secular or anything self-oriented, and so those 3 categories are a really good starting point, and the Jupiter position often has something to do with that too. The Jupiter position will also give clues as to what a person's dharma is. Like yours is Jupiter in Aquarius, And
Right.
so basically that is a suggestion that always it's best to look at everything from the widest possible view. To be, in a sense, on the leading edge, to be willing to be the Native American approach would be to say the eagle. The eagle is flying highest in the stratosphere that sees the biggest possible view. So that there's always that suggestion in there, and that would then be associated with kind of a spiritual path. But that would be different than with you being Scorpio rising. That's certainly not suggesting that your path is one of just mystical quietism, only,
Right.
yours is far more about life force, about passion, aliveness, the matrilineal language being Shakti, the actionable expression of the feminine principle, very little to do with Cancer approach. And your moon is in Cancer, but that's an old part of yourself, so you leave that one behind.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for that. It definitely resonates. And it is an honor also to hear someone who's been in this for so long speak to it. There's a million ways to look at a chart. So I just thank you for taking that moment. That's beautiful.
Well, one of the decisions that I made some time ago was that because there's so many possibilities of how to approach astrology, that many people get caught up in the minutia, or they end up going down rabbit holes that end up not being so useful at getting to the bottom line core issues. So what I did was try to create something that would simplify it but not superficialize it. So you can take the core features, get to the bottom line very quickly, and then if you want to add other things, well, you'll find the same story at level 2, level 3, level 4. So it's like, how do you get the basic ingredients? Well, we eliminated sun sign astrology. I mean, it's not being particularly useful.
Right.
That's sort of a fashion more than anything. And we emphasize for women the Venus position, and for men the Mars position. And then there's the ascendant, which is the directional movement of the soul toward there. And the moon is where who you used to be. So if you know the moon position, it's like saying, well, you're Cancer moon. Well, you used to be a Cancer, or you previously graduated from the University of Cancer, or you come from the Cancer tribe, But
yeah. I'm okay with that one.
But that's the reason why I made that comment to you, that the predilection, the potential addiction of the Cancer moon is that they're there to hold it together for everybody else.
Right.
And so in your own set of instructions, if I might put it this way, is to learn to receive more than to give. And that's because why? Because you have Venus in Taurus. Venus in Taurus.
Yes, I do. It's at home in Taurus. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the so-called rulership position, but the difference between Cancer and Taurus is that Cancer spins one direction, Taurus spins the other. So Cancer is about, okay, where is nourishment needed? Who needs to be taken care of? I need to have a function or a job to make a contribution. Whether it's my kids, whether it's my school, whether it's whomever you're providing nourishment to. That's the old story. The new story, Venus and Taurus, is like how to be in a position to know what's good, so it's not indiscriminate, but to actually then be valued for your capacity to receive. So it's an Aphrodite position. It's a version of Shakti that is an expert at intimacy as art, beauty and aesthetics, and ability to receive in a good way. So that's also the thing to keep in mind in your case, in your personal relationships. I mean, with a chart like yours, under no condition try to make a relationship work by being the Cancer type. It
doesn't work. I'm a pro at it.
I know. So instead, work on it being Taurus. Have somebody show up that treats you a particular way where you don't have to give to them.
Amazing. Yes, I'm in that moment for the first time in my life, so that's really special.
Well, you're in a, you mean if you're having that experience now, I mean, that's one of the features of the cycle you're in. It's like, all right, you get to be loved the way you've always wanted to be loved.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I do. Thank you. It's so true. So we have a couple more minutes,
Yeah.
and I would love to hear from you about. So I'm sure that we have people listening right now who are, maybe practitioners or of shamanism or astrology, and or are interested in both of those things. What would you say would be a good practice to merge those things together if people are really excited about learning from those two aspects?
Well, I mean, certainly I would suggest that they go check out the Shamanic Astrology website.
Mm-hmm.
We have numerous online classes, and also we have live in-person events. I have several books that go into all of this. So the website, shamanicastrology.com, is a tremendous resource on this. I've had a private practice of doing sessions for a long time, but I'm actually so overbooked on that I'm trying to refer people now to what people I've trained. So we have like a whole roster of other shamanic astrologers that you can see get information about from our website. What else could I suggest? Spend as much time as possible with the land and the sky. We emphasize in the school a lot doing ceremony. So if there happens to be, for example, a Moon-Venus conjunction, or certainly just what happened a few days ago with Mars being at its closest approach to the Earth in 15 years, right with the full moon. These kinds of things. Actually being in touch with the lunar cycles, doing certain kinds of intentions, seed planting at the new moons, to see how the expansion of your seed intentions are happening around the full moon, things like that. So it's to ceremonialize it as much as possible with your life cycles. Another feature of it is the knowing your sun-moon angle. I mean, every month there will be the recreation of the original angle between the sun and the moon, which is like both literally and symbolically an ovulation point. It's like the point of potency in the creative process, for both men and women. So those are just some examples.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. You say that again. What are you looking for in the chart? The sun-moon angle repeating from your birth?
Yeah. So if you were born under the full moon, then it would be every full moon. If you're born under the first quarter moon, it would be every first quarter moon. But not everybody gets to have a sun-moon angle that is quite that specific. I mean, you could have a gibbous, you could have a balsamic. I mean, there's crescent. But you can work this out so that every month there's that point. And that's a point of ovulation. It's actually a secondary fertility cycle for women.
Okay, interesting. I love that. Thank you. So what is something that you are really excited about right now?
Well, the thing that actually inspires me the most these days is my side project, actually, which is this group I lead together with a woman named Anya McAndrew called the Renaissance of the Sacred Feminine. And we take groups of people to Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and Wiltshire. And it's a way of taking people back to these 5,000-6,000-year-old sites from the time of the megalithic and Neolithic and megalithic golden age, of really tuning in back to that time prior to what I was referring to at the beginning called the triple aberration. So that excites me. In fact, I'm leaving in a few days for some research up in parts of England, and then meeting the group in Ireland for our group at the end of August. And then beyond that, Christina, it's the ongoing inquiry of my whole life, which could be summarized as, who are we, and what the hell happened? You know, I mean, how did we get here? You know, and it's like, what is the actual lineage of human beings? And, you know, like, what are these different things that have happened in the last 4,000 or 5,000 years that have produced the bottleneck we're at now?
Yeah, wonderful. I have to tell you, I was in Scotland like 4 years ago, and I do have some Scottish lineage. My mom's mom is from there. But when
Yeah.
I was there, I didn't expect to have such an activation with the land, but I really could move there. It was the most spiritual, most connected place that I've ever felt like I've been.
What part of Scotland did you go to?
I did a month, and I did a loop starting in Edinburgh up north to
Yes.
the Orkneys and around to the west to the islands, Lewis and Harris, and
Well, that's it, boy. That's actually partly what started me off, because I did that same circuit in '83 and '84 on Orkneys, and I do next year we're taking our group to Callanish and to the Kilmartin Valley in Argyll. But Callanish stones are just so super important in my life.
yeah, I was in England a few weeks ago, and I went to Stonehenge, and I didn't go in because there were a million people and it was very expensive, and I just thought I can feel it from here. But it was nothing like this. Nothing like Scotland and the many stones.
I agree. In fact, if you're going to go back to the England areas, just skip Stonehenge entirely. But where the magic is at Avebury.
That's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Oh, that's great.
Right.
I'll have to go back. So, yeah, I will. I will definitely. So tell us, I know that you have something that you want to share with the audience, so we can
yes,
you
indeed.
want to introduce that?
We have in our school, we do a regular, usually 4 or 5 a year, teleclasses. I mean, it's part of people subscribe to it. You know, it's part of our school's way of getting revenue. But it occurred to me that I would like to share one that we've already done, but which is still topical for the time we're in. We had a class specifically on the movement of Uranus into Taurus. And so that whole class is covering sort of global, historical, and personal features of what that means. And we had a lot of discussion in there about the meaning of the Aquarian archetype and the meaning of the Taurian archetype during this particular time frame. So we'll make that available to everyone who signs up.
Okay, wonderful. It sounds great. And thank you so much for this. This has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you a bit more and to listen to you. And you have such an amazing wealth of wisdom. So I know I'm going to be continuing to listen and see what you're up to.
Well, thank you, Christina. Great sharing this with you. It's a great pleasure, and I'll hope to talk to you again down the road.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.